Well, with the elections around the corner, we've seen various parts of government giving assurances that the elections will be held safely, that there'll be no major security issues. You know the context of this. We had the violence in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng 2 months ago. There have been some killings linked to politics over the last month within political parties. At the same time, if I may say, a relatively new Defence Minister, Thandi Modise, was appointed to Cabinet after that violence. I'm pleased to tell you the Defence Minister joins us now. Minister, good afternoon to you, and thank you very much for coming into Newzroom Afrika this afternoon.
Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me.
The local elections are going to be held on Monday. Do you believe it's safe to hold them? Do you believe, as the Minister of Defence, that these elections will be held safely?
I believe that the elections will be done safely. I believe that every contingency that we could think of has been covered. I believe that the IEC is quite clear that they have everything done according to their plans. The security cluster has met. We have been keeping our ears and eyes on the ground. We believe that we have also called out political party leaders to not be doing anything outside the laws. We are sure that whatever it is, it will have to be an act of God that will prevent this country from going to the elections. But anything else, we think we have it covered.
I mean, you can imagine how people might feel. So government didn't seem able to stop the violence 2 months ago in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. There's a feeling, I think, that there's more violent crime now than there was before the pandemic. I'm not blaming government for that. It's a complicated situation. Do you think people believe government when government says, you know, we can keep you safe? I think many people feel a bit unsafe at the moment for various reasons.
I can understand that. But basically, safety is an issue that government must ensure. Put everything into place, make sure that you've got an effective defense system in, whether it is the police, whether it is the defense, whether it is making sure that those who must face the law face the law. But also it is about us as people and as a nation. Are we putting in systems in raising our children properly? Is society interrogating itself? And sometimes I think that we want to use the big stick, the law, the law, the law. But we fail to actually start looking at things that must make us tick as a nation. What have we been doing wrong? Have we overemphasized certain rights to the detriment of others? Shouldn't we be taking another look at ourselves as a society and as government being led by the people's choices and complaints? So I do think that people must give us a chance to look, because we have been looking deeply into ourselves. I know that we are critically looking at the security systems of the country, and I believe that we have noticed some weaknesses, which I hope into the future we will be correcting.
You talk about some of the weaknesses. And I mean, you come into the Defence Ministry at a very difficult time for the South African National Defence Force. And this is not your fault, although it is now your job. But, I mean, you could say for 10, probably 15 years, there's been underfunding in the National Defence Force. I mean, this is a critical problem.
I think it's longer than that.
Yeah.
If you remember, in the 90s, we got all hyped up with a 2%, less than 2% GDP allocation to the defences. Now, over the years, less than 2% of the GDP, with an ailing South African economy, that has really begun to have a bad impact on the ability of the Defence Force in the first place to renew, to recruit, to put in to make sure that it updates its systems, to make sure that all the maintenance of its own systems are kept up to date. And I must say that can't excuse us, because some things didn't need money. But we could, and we think that we are going to be looking deep inside ourselves. I'm very proud because the defense has begun to really do that. We've begun to do our own maintenance. We have begun to help the country build bridges, and those things that are deep in the communities, in the rural areas, because that will enable us not only to get the skills to be self-sufficient as defense, but it will also begin to re-legitimize the National Defense Force in the eyes of the people. Because During COVID, certain things happened, and we suffered a little bit in our credibility ratings. We want to correct that. We want to be relevant. We want to be the first point of call when people feel insecure. They must know their National Defence Force is there.
So, I mean, you're right in the 1990s that spending on a defence force wasn't a priority, although there was the arms deal. But, I mean, that was long before you had responsibility.
Well, I was a member of the Joint Standing Committee of Defence. I can't run away from that.
It wasn't the right thing to do, really, was it?
No. The right thing, we needed to equip.
Sure.
So I'm never going to run away from the fact that we did need to re-equip. We did need to buy vessels. I'm just not sure that we knew exactly what type of vessels were going to be the right vessels at that time.
I think if you had said to South Africans then, we need to spend more money on a South African National Defence Force rather than increasing social grants in the late 90s now, I think most people would have disagreed with that. And I suspect if you had to say to people now, you could spend more money on the South African National Defence Force, which I accept and agree we need. I don't disagree with that at all. But you could spend money on that, or you could spend money on a basic income grant, or increasing teachers' salaries, or particularly the salaries of nurses and doctors during a pandemic. I don't know if everyone would want to spend money on the military, despite the fact that we need one. What I'm getting to, this is a tough spending choice.
It is a tough spending choice. We do need the basic income grant. We do need to keep the kids in school fed. But we also need to make sure that there are no doubts that South Africa is a dependable state. It can deal with its challenges. For you to do that, you don't just need the constitution. You need your muscle. You need to continue to be doing what we are doing. If South Africa doesn't stand up, DRC will be going down. We are now in Mozambique. And the men and women of this country are doing very well there. They may not be getting praises every day. So it is not just about entrenching and defending our own democracy here. It's also the fact that the region looks up to us. And therefore, we cannot dodge the fact that you do need to equip and you do need to take care of these long coastal lines. You do need to make sure that nothing in the North Pole goes wrong, because it is our responsibility, something which South Africans don't always take into consideration. So sometimes these ships that you need must also be patrolling on the rest of the world.
I'm going to come back to Mozambique. I don't want to get distracted from it, but did I hear you correctly saying we do need a basic income grant?
We do. You are going to have to look at the poverty lines. You are going to have to look at all the strategies we've been trying to put in place. You are going to have to accept that the economy is not going to grow as fast as we can. You're going to have to accept that we've got good universities. They just don't produce people who produce jobs. So poverty is still an issue. Inequality is going to be with us unless we wake up and kick it in the butt and do something different.
Okay, so back to Mozambique, and thank you for your clarity on that. We are going to have to deploy probably more soldiers. We've seen Rwanda doing some work there, interestingly. Do you believe we actually have the resources and the soldiers to make a difference? And this is the first time SADC is deploying in this way. SADC includes countries that don't speak the same languages that we do, and particularly, you know, I've never been in the military, but I would imagine that command and control is very important in these situations. Understanding each other is very important. There's a lot riding on this SADC operation. As you point out, people will look to us to an extent for leadership, although I think Rwanda possibly has more combat experience, maybe. Are you worried that the SADC operation might not go very well in Cabo Delgado?
I actually want to dispute that Rwanda has more military combat experience than us. We've been all over. We have never denied the fact that we've brought together different fighting strengths. SADC, we might not like what happened there, but there was a lot of experience there. We've seen a lot of things from Burundi to CAR to... So we do have combat experience. We also happen to be the biggest regional military. We also happen to have better resources than our neighbors. We also happen to have better training. And therefore, I think we will see some action in Mozambique. Obviously, we want to get there as quick as possible, help them resolve their issues and come back to base. But we also must bear in mind that that is what we thought when we went into the DRC. We are still there. Every time we think that the mission is ending, it's restarted. So it's a revolving door. But what it means is that you actually need this region, all countries, to relook at the way they have been running their militaries. If the Mozambican Defense Force was quick, prepared, well-trained, I don't think they would have asked the neighbors to come in.
An important point. We're speaking to Thandi Modise this afternoon on Newsfeed. She's with us for another 15 minutes. Do stay with us on Newsfeed. More questions to come about the elections and what happened with the struggle veterans 10 days ago. Welcome back. Thanks for being with us this Tuesday afternoon on Newsfeed. Continuing our conversation now with the Minister of Defence and Military Veterans, Thandi Modise. Minister, there was this bizarre situation 10 days ago, and I mean, you obviously will remember it very clearly. You found yourself in a room with Mondli Gungubele, the Presidency Minister, the Deputy Minister of Defence at Tabang Makwetla, and a group of people who describe themselves as veterans of the liberation struggle. They come from different organisations. They refused to let you leave the room, and in the end, the police task team, the SAPS task team, had to get you out. Did you fear for your safety during that moment?
Well, I knew some of the people, and therefore I did not necessarily feel my life was threatened. I did feel irritated when I couldn't get to the loo when I wanted to get to the loo. To their credit, they offered to escort me, which I declined, because I still felt it is my business and I am in a free country which I help fight for. I think that it is unfortunate, and I hope that it is never repeated in this country. It definitely doesn't give us any better credit ratings as a country, that you could have a discussion which started amicably and deadlocks within 5 minutes, simply because the head of state must be in the room. The head of state has a lot of work to do. He had delegated the responsibility to the deputy president, who got caught up somewhere and then delegated it to the minister in the presidency to chair the meeting. We didn't go further than that. I think that whatever it is, I have made a public promise. I am going to investigate what has been happening, which is making a lot of military veterans unhappy. I know that we are in the process of just double-checking the people who are coming forward to double-check whether or not their credentials are right. I do know that some people genuinely are in need. I need to find out why they have not been assisted. But I also understand that we do need to do those checks, because when somebody says to me, I joined when I was 27 years old and now I'm 54, I do the maths and I think, why would you want to join Mkhonto Wesizwe in 1993 when we are getting into almost amalgamation of all the forces and the MOP was around the corner? And why then, if you joined in 1993, genuinely, do you expect this government to give you 4.2 million? So those are some of the questions that we are looking at. Some of them are quite genuine. People do need to be given their pensions calculated correctly. People need to be given their benefits as former military veterans on an equal basis right across the country. So we're looking into that, and we're hoping that we will be able to conclude that. As to the big money, I don't know if the president can find the money. Definitely our budget as defense cannot afford that.
53 people were charged with doing this. My understanding is that 40 of them have convictions. Many of those convictions are for violence. I mean, I understand that you need to investigate each case. I mean, and I understand that that for us as a nation to say that people who gave up their lives and their families in the struggle to not receive some reparation or compensation would be morally wrong. I understand that. But I mean, when you have such a high number of people who have convictions already, I mean, the worst outcome, the symbol would be that you're being held hostage against your will as the Minister of Defence, I mean, that's an important position in the chain of command, by a group of people who really had no right. I mean, you didn't have to be in the room with them in the first place, would go the argument.
Well, I had to be in the room because if you are a minister, you must listen to everything that has to do with the department you've been made responsible for. So for me, it was important to go and hear and to maybe try and offer some explanations. But also, we were expected to give a feedback from the reports and the work that the President as task team had been doing. We did not even get to give that report. So that is part of the reason why I was in the room, to be able to say this is how far we have come and this is how much progress we still need to cover. I do also accept that we do need to look at criminal records. In fact, one of the things which was put in front of the President was a request for him to expunge criminal records, which he has not responded to. It would have to be a very serious matter for the President to really take the step to expunge any criminal records, because at any given point, we want to expect that people give their lives for a better cause, will keep within the right side of the law, and will do so and keep the flag running. So we don't expect that we will be accosted by people with criminal records and being forced to expand. But we also need to look at what are those records. So as I have no idea what the records are, I really would like to take a pause here.
I understand that. I need to ask you about the local government elections and your movement, the African National Congress, the governing party. There is what your leader, the President Cyril Ramaphosa, called a palpable sense of anger at the ANC at the moment. I'm sure you understand it. I mean, first, let me say that I think in democracies, all governing parties have a problem with this during a pandemic. I think that's a part of it. But the service delivery issues have nothing to do with the pandemic. I mean, the sewage running in the streets in some places, the traffic lights that don't work, the electricity, and again, this is a local election, it's not an Eskom election, but I mean, there's load shedding around the country right now. There's simply bad governance, and most of this bad governance is a political problem. We can see this from the Auditor General's reports. Do you believe people are still going to vote for you after all of that?
I believe that the people will vote for us. I believe that we are also very serious, and we mean it when we say we will turn the ANC around. I believe that the pledge that the President made came from not only himself, but from the rest of the National Executive Committee on behalf of the branches. We have changed the system of getting to put people into the positions as councillors. We have actually listened very well to the populations, the constituencies. We have also promised that we will look for competent people. Now, you don't always get competent people by looking at their certificates. You must actually take a further step once the people have accepted them, to make sure that they really possess the skills. You must make sure that you upskill those skills. And where I've been campaigning in my province, I have put myself on the line that at least we should be there. We also need to go back to the Systems Act and the Municipal Act, because your main problem at service delivery is your supply chain. It is the ability of councillors to know where their responsibilities start and end. It is for councils to actually be forced to hire competent staff. In other words, your municipal manager must know his staff or her staff. In other words, you cannot take somebody with a diploma and put them in charge of millions and billions of money. So you've got to have competent financial people there. You've got to also be able to win new entrants into politics, into this aura of this is a national leader. If they say jump, I will jump. In the ANC, when I joined in 1976, they told us we must never accept to take any illegal order. And that is what we are saying to them. I will not come and say, give me that. That can't be done. And therefore, the ANC is resolute. It will train and it will keep a stronger eye on its councillors. People have been told they will lose their seats faster than they think if anything goes wrong.
So, I mean, I think many people listening will want to believe you. But when you look at some of the people who still hold prominent positions, I mean, Malusi Gigaba was found by a court to have lied. He's still on the NEC. Dr. Zweli Mkhize, in just the most unbelievable scandal, resigned from his position in cabinet, but has not resigned from the NEC over the Digital Vibes saga. I mean, I can go on. If we look at the Zondo Commission testimony, people who testified there, who still keep their positions. I mean, the NEC, we know, the most important body in the ANC between conferences. I suppose the question would be, how can voters believe what you say, even if they want to, when these people are still in really important positions in the ANC?
They must believe us because we are transparent. They must believe us because when we took a decision that said people must step aside, we were very open about it. They must believe us because we also are trying to see that our internal processes don't always go against the laws. We've been dragged to court. I don't think other party members drag their leaders to court like the ANC members drag us to court. So sometimes the processes are slower, but they do get there. I think that you must give us the chance to deal with the internal issues of the ANC. Dr. Zweli Mkhize is there. Whatever it is that he's being accused of was in his responsibility in government. He's no longer in the government. Gigaba is no longer in the government. Are the matters before the courts? If the matters are before the courts, we are waiting for the courts, because the ANC is not going to protect anybody who's facing the courts.
There's going to be an ANC national conference next year. There's only one woman in the ANC's national officials, the top 6. Are you available for a nomination?
I don't know. There hasn't been any nomination. If it comes, we will consider it.
We will consider it?
Yes.
I don't think I'm going to get much more from you, although it's worth trying.
No, but I do know that the first legitimate, legal, in terms of the state, then conference of the ANC in Durban, we fought for 30%, we upped it to 50-50, and we are very serious about that. So 50-50 we must get. We missed the chance at Nasrec. Maybe next time around we will get the 50-50 right through the structures of the ANC. By the way, we've not done so well in the local government elections, precisely because we took the matters to the constituencies and they ended up choosing more men than women. So we are a little bit upset in the ANC, but we're hoping that we'll find ways of correcting that.
Be a good idea for the ANC to have a female deputy president after the conference next year?
It'd be a good thing for whoever comes in to get ready to take over the reins from the president when the president puts the reins down. I'm a feminist. I believe that women can do as well, if not better. I believe that Africa in particular will run better the day more women get to the decision-making table, not as observers, but as decision takers.
Any women you can think of who'd be available? One sitting across the table from me now, perhaps?
Well, I don't know about that, but I think in the ANC there's quite a group of women who are really ready and ripe for those positions.
Probably pushed you as far as I can. Thandi Modise, thank you very much indeed. The Minister of Defence here on Newsfeed this afternoon with you. All right.